and welcome to Labor Talks. I'm your host, Laurie Gruber, and today's special guest is Jill Christopherson. Welcome to the show, Jill.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
To have you. We want to get to know who you are, so if you could tell us a little bit about Jill.
My name is Jill Christopherson, and I'm running for City Council. I'm originally from South Dakota, and I think that says a lot about me. South Dakota is a place of wide open spaces, that long vision, and tenacious people. And I really feel like I have that Plains characteristic in my heart. But I've been in Eau Claire since 1982. I came here with my family. I have one daughter who attended Memorial High School, and she's living in the Twin Cities. I've had a variety of jobs. Sometimes I just joke saying it was hard for me to keep work, but really I'm somebody that likes to have a fresh opportunity, something that I can experiment with, and sink my teeth into. But I've recently retired from 16 years at First Congregational United Church of Christ, where I was staff there. It was an exciting job. A lot of dimension, and when I retired, I thought, I'm going to just wait until I find out exactly what says yes to me, and here I am, running for City Council, and I'm pretty excited.
And it's the first time you're running for City Council.
This is my first time in public service. Yeah.
Good for you. You've served as a counselor for domestic abuse, right?
I have.
And what services are available in this area for victims of domestic abuse?
I'm going to flesh that out a little bit. A lot of my work is work that supports individuals, helps them to find direction, supports them in making significant changes. And I really enjoyed, I found that domestic violence counseling was very meaningful work. Since I left that field, which was around 2000, there has been pressure against the funding for those programs, which makes sense. A lot of those help programs seem to be the ones that are being targeted, and they're easy to lay aside. I think that as a community, we're very fortunate. If you look at the variety of support that women have, there's a very active program in Chippewa Falls, the Family Support Center, and that particular agency provides the sexual assault services for Eau Claire. There's also the Bolton Refuge House that has the overnight location right here in Eau Claire, and that's a beautiful facility. That's just a beautiful facility. But I think we'd also want to look at what's expanded from that. And I was at the press conference this last Sunday for Fierce Freedom, which is a new take on an old issue, human trafficking. And children, these are young people, the average age is 14, that are just either sought online or picked up in restaurants, and then there they are, their life has changed. So that's a significant project. And I also like to think about sexual assault with this Me Too movement. I think it's really easy to not give the right attention to that significant threat against women.
Give it the negative attention because somebody waited.
Yes.
Rather than coming forward right away, and now they feel more empowered to come out with what happened to them, and so then people are treating them like, yeah, right, you really made it all up, you're just trying to get attention, because there is no, it's beyond a statute of limitations and things. People still need to be able to have that outlet to get that out.
Absolutely.
So it's not bottled up inside. And
sure, and support, and yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely the key, that support, being heard, being believed in all of those victimizing situations. That's a key element in recovery.
And as far as the human trafficking, a lot of people don't realize that the Midwestern states, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, even Michigan, because of the lake situation and the availability to get these people out of the country or move to another state. They don't realize these states are so bad until you start looking at the numbers.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, there are many stories to be told, and I think it's very important. And Fierce Freedom is excellent at what they're doing, but that idea of what am I looking for? You know, who is a potential victim?
And you've been involved with counseling and admissions assistance to place adult students, right? Or returning adult students into post-secondary education.
You kind of see my theme kind of developing here.
Please tell us about that. How do you encourage adults to go back to school?
Well, when you begin to talk about that, it's fairly obvious. Adults have a lot of experience and they know what is valuable to them, but when you're making a decision to go back to school, there's usually some impetus. Either you've been downsized, you find yourself at a dead end in your career, and you want to open more opportunities. So you would imagine that maybe education or retraining is going to open something for you. But that always comes with a cost. So they're going to make a decision based on what will I gain by taking this time away from my family, taking resources away from my family, and investing it in a new career. So education or information that helps them identify what kind of income potential does this have, how many job openings would I expect to find in my community, if I take this education, I'm going to have to move, would I be able to stay in this area? So those would be right up front, and typically it will be money, like money in, money out. From that perspective, there's really two things that separate returning adult students from traditional age students. Is one, they know how to make that comparison. Younger students don't have a lot of experience about the cost of living, so they're going to more gamble investment, you know, like I'm just going to throw my money out there and see how my life goes.
And not sure what they want to go to school
Exactly.
for. Or
Yeah,
they go to
exactly.
school for something that there really isn't a need for in the job force.
Or the demand is on the downswing. Returning adult students are a little bit more savvy than that. And they're also much better students. That's probably a negative thing to say, but they're disciplined. They've got skin in the game, so that they show up, they do their work. So that that was a really great period of time. And of course that program is still available at University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire Educational Opportunity Center.
Sister-in-law was a farmer's wife.
Okay.
And then when the kids got into school,
Absolutely.
she went back to school to be a nurse. And now she's got her master's degree. So it's important, I think, for women to understand that there are avenues for them. Absolutely. Once those kids are in school, if they felt that it was important for them to stay home in those first 5-6 years until they get to school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think as well, this for women certainly, that choosing for their own future at a time when their children are still in school, that's a really difficult choice to make. But I would like to say that children who see you putting education first, see how you manage your homework, see how you complete and what it's like to succeed, that's really motivating to your children. It sets up for them a model that they can.
Because if mom can do it, I can do it, right?
Absolutely.
Or if dad can do it. I know you've been involved with the post-employment services and placing people too, like Uniroyal when they closed. My husband's a robotics machinist. Those are the kind of jobs that keep getting sent to China, to this whatever. And so the longest he's been in any one job is 10 years. The guys that worked for Northwest Airlines, for instance, when it became Delta, and even though they had been promised to keep the jobs there, a lot of them went south. Or when they work for the Ford plant, our labor guys, they've got to find different employment. And it's hard for them to decide, I got to go back to school.
Yeah.
And are there any programs out there that will help these displaced workers go back to school? I know there was for a while, but I don't know that there still is.
So I am going to have to say I haven't kept up to date on that. But if I'm going to just shoot from the hip, again, those those assistance, that assistance is not it's not popular right now.
Not when unemployment's been targeted.
Exactly.
And that was all part of the workforce development.
Yeah, exactly. So the support for that, I'm going to kind of broad brush stroke this. I think that one of the most difficult things, for instance, when Uniroyal moved so much of its workforce to Alabama, is the grieving. That's an entire career that a person is losing. It's a way of life that they're losing. It's your identity with I'm a Uniroyal employee. So it's a very complex, very complicated issue for men to grieve. And typically they just want to move on. Just give me another job. And I think that in Eau Claire, we're still feeling the impact of that lost revenue. I mean, those were good paying jobs. That was a large workforce. They were local taxpayers, and we as a community had a significant loss there.
It's like the places where UAW is, and they've taken
Right.
huge job cuts.
Right.
You know, and my father, my husband's uncle, is from worked at Chrysler, and he was only in his 50s.
Okay.
So they're too young to retire.
Exactly.
Too old for anybody else to hire them. It tends to be that, and so they fall through the cracks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hear when they ask about the employment numbers, people will say, are people still looking for employment? And that would be the age group that, you know, they may not stick it out.
They fall through the cracks.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then they're not included in the numbers, so it's not a true reflection when
That's
you get the
exactly
numbers
right.
reports.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And are you still active locally with Jonah? I know that's a really wonderful program in our area.
I am very excited about that. And it talks a lot about why I'm running for city council. So for people that don't know what Jonah is, it's a values-based faith community organizing, joining our neighbors, advancing hope. So it's a group of people that organize around shared values. It would be health care for everyone. It would be fair wage for equal work. We demonstrated and organized around the high interest rates, predatory lending. And I think that I learned so much about how I can bring values that are important to me into the public space. Because it would be just like you and I talking. You begin to understand what motivates somebody, where their passion lies, so that when you have something that you're interested in moving forward, you can say, oh, I talked to Jill Christopherson, and I remember that she had a family member who had alcohol and other drug abuse issues, and that was really important to her. So I'm going to talk to her and see if she would join me. So it's educating yourself, it's building relationships with other people, and then when you want to organize, you want to show that you have backing for an important issue in our local community, you gather those people together and you show up. So it's not just Jill saying this is important to me, but it's Jill and the 30 people that I've gathered over the last year.
You realize
saying,
there's a lot of other people that are in the same boat, have the same issues affecting their families.
And it helps to empower people. They feel like, oh, I don't have to just sit and take this. I can participate in the conversation, and I can maybe make a difference in how Eau Claire deals with the issue of immigration. I can deal with the issue of natural resources.
Or the opioid meth problems and stuff like
Exactly.
that. It affects every family, and people don't think so. Or if it is affecting their family, they think they're the only ones.
Or
And
they're
there's a way to
ashamed.
draw it. Right.
They're ashamed to say that that's something that they're dealing with. That's really where Eau Claire started with Jonah, is treatment instead of prison. And it was, at that time we were talking, well, it was drug and alcohol abuse, but the number of people that had long sentences when actually the crime did not have any would not have required that length of sentencing. So you have people that were not, there was no damage, there was simply a breaking and entering, or they were driving their car under the influence. And I understand that this, people have a lot of feelings about this, but at some point we have to look at recovering our losses. We don't want people that are wasting away in prison or in jails. Right. They're not paying taxes. They're not advancing their own careers. They're not caring for their families. They're going to come out and they're not going to be able to get a job. Right. We're not doing ourselves a favor as a community. And they're going to come back to us. They're going to come back to this community, and they're going to want to create a new life. It just makes sense that we would look at how can we, I would have to just use the words, how are we going to punish the offense appropriately, but preserve their value and their life so that when they come back to Eau Claire,
they become a viable part of the community.
They're a viable part of the community.
And there's a whole new group of people that don't, and they're not thinking about their actions when they're into drugs.
Oh, no.
But they'll give a friend the drugs, and that friend commits suicide by an overdose, and then this person ends up in jail, in prison, for murder, for homicide. Yes. Mm-hmm. And yes, they have to think about the consequences of their action, but is it the right place for them to be?
Good point. Good point. And Eau Claire has really excellent alternative courts where the judge and that person can actually interact and see that what is the issue, what do we need to solve here? How can you participate in changing your own behavior?
I mean, to me, it's totally different than the doctor who gives somebody a prescription without proper oversight, fentanyl, the opioids, and then once they leave their office, they don't think about what they've done. To me, they have a different responsibility than that 18-year-old person who shared, their recreational drugs, which is bad, but shared it with someone else.
Well, I think that you begin to flesh out what a complex situation that is, because there is that resourcing, where are the drugs coming from, the fact that just now we have, so late in the game, we realize how addictive they are. It's complicated, and it affects the quality of our community.
It's a huge epidemic in this area, and it leads to the other problems, which is the homelessness and the domestic abuse, and the first level crimes like burglary to get the money for the drugs. And
exactly.
It's all interconnected, and we've got to be able to work ways around
or
figure out how to work it best.
There's I'd like to just provide some current information that there is a conversation at the county level about the jailers and their preparedness and how well trained they are. Are they paid well enough? Are they prepared and equipped to do provide the kind of support they need to for the people that they're supervising? I think that's something that's local. That's something that we can control. And I think that deserves our support.
They need to be aware and be supportive of someone that's in the jail that's coming off the drugs.
Exactly.
And detoxing, and how do I best help them so that they've got a safe environment when they're in the jail, but also support their ability, don't do this again type thing. But this is where your next steps would be, rather than getting out, going with a friend that got them into it in the first place.
True, but I think too that gives that professional the kind of context, so that they're not afraid of the person that's in jail. They're not abusing that person because they don't understand the issues of drug addiction. I think it's every situation is different. Every jailer has different experience. Every victim has different experience. So we can pay attention to that.
There's a misconception out there, Jill, that those who fight for working families are not Christians. Have you any ideas to help us fight that misunderstanding or that misconception? The liberal versus the conservatives, and I'm considered a conservative Democrat. Okay, I'm a Christian, and I believe in. And to me, you have to be someone who believes in faith and human values in order to help fight against the drug abuse and the other epidemics that are facing this country. But that misconception out there is that we're not Christian.
Well, I'm not sure how that where that comes from. I think I would move to a little different perspective in thinking that people will attack things that they don't know about or are afraid of. You know, exactly. But I think that it gives us all an opportunity to. I try to act out of high values and respect for other people, and compassion for people that disagree with me. So
Rather an educated debate versus the mudslinging and the name calling and the leftist liberals who don't, type versus the, the right wingers. And
we're all different, and we all have our experience that we're building on. So I've not had people come to me with that particular accusation, but I do know that right now it's really important for us to be very careful listeners and to be compassionate of other people's experience, because somehow they've arrived there somehow.
I spent quite a bit of time in Madison with the rallies against Walker's Act 10, and that's when we were dubbed the union thugs, the liberals, the lefties, that we are hedonists that don't believe in anything, and they're so wrong. But we've got to bring that back across with education and things like that.
I think this is a very different time in our public sphere. And in previous decades, we've had the resources we need to have a thriving public discourse, to support the kind of infrastructure and to protect our natural resources. And for some reason, that is not so popular right now. But it's still valuable, it's still worthy, and I think that as we work together, we'll find that common ground. I can only have compassion for people that are so angry about a livelihood that they see threatened. Again, you see people who are farmers, people in the north where they've had good jobs that are moving away, and they see themselves left behind. So I again, instead of resisting or arguing with people, I think we need to continue to dig in and look for that common ground, because that's the only way we're going to get where we want to go, is together.
And to work together, right?
Yeah.
That's right. And do you support the living wage ordinance?
I do. My very first job when I left high school and worked my way through college, I worked for Northwestern Bell Telephone Company in South Dakota. And that is the best wage that I've had. So once I graduated from college, and I didn't stay with them because I wanted to pursue something that was more in my field. But I respect that kind of organization. I respect that kind of collective bargaining, because right now, for an individual, well, you see it in the Me Too movement, for an individual to protect themselves against an organized business, that's daunting. And that individual really, I just don't see how it works. But collective bargaining, if we look out for one another and see what can we bargain for without endangering the profitability of the business, but being able to share in the profitability, I think that's where the middle class is going to come from.
I mean, I really believe happy employees are productive employees.
I do
and it treats them with dignity, like they have some say. They go to work owning a piece. I'm going to go do the best I can do because this company cares about me. Versus, if he quits, who cares? We'll just get another one. And that's a mentality of a lot of companies out there. Or we'll just move to, Alabama, like Gruber did, or we'll move to Mexico, and we can get those people down there for a nickel, And they just don't understand. It's important. We don't just speak for the people we work with. We speak for everybody in the working class when we're trying to fight and make our lives better, because it ends up making their lives better. Jill's got this over at work. I want that. You know, it makes it better because we all come together.
Well, it opens up a whole sense of what's possible. And I do think there is evidence that would show that individuals who are working and are respected and are able to participate in creating their own work environment are better employees.
Right. Well, we certainly wish you all the best luck, especially in this race and in the future.
Well, thank
you.
you.
If there's ever any time that you'd like to step out and come back and be a guest again, if there's something really you get passionate and want to talk about, or come to the Labor Council meetings as guests so you can learn
Thank you.
some more about what working families are facing, we'd certainly love to have.
Well, I just want to make a quick statement. If I have I think that people can look to unions to see how can we participate in our public sphere. And I am asking for your vote on April 3rd in District 4. It would be my pleasure to serve with you.
And we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
That's today's program. And our thanks to the viewing audience who tuned in today, and to Jill, who made today's program possible. My thanks also to the folks that work behind our cameras from Valley Media Works. They not only make the show possible, but they give us an outlet for working family voices. And that's obviously very, very important. A final note, Labor Talks is on channel 993 twice weekly. You can also use your favorite search engines with keywords Labor Talks and Valley Media Works, and find us on YouTube. Thank you for joining me today.
Television is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, you can contact us by calling 715-839-5067 or on the web at www.cbctv.org.